I broke up with my girlfriend because she was leaking the most intimate details of our lives to her friends in their group chat. I didn't find out from her. I found out because one of her friends accidentally sent me a screenshot meant for someone else. It was a group chat, her and 3 of her girlfriends. They were talking about me like I was some cautionary tale. Stuff I told her in confidence, things I'd said in weak moments, all laid out in little blue bubbles with laughing emojis next to them. Not just embarrassing things, either. Private details about my family, my health, even stuff about my job. At first, I thought maybe I was reading it wrong, that it was missing context. I scrolled back up and reread the messages. No, it was exactly what it looked like. She'd been feeding them stories for weeks, maybe months, and not in a playful, "my boyfriend's goofy" way. It was mean. She twisted my words, exaggerated things, and added little digs like I wasn't going to be reading them someday. I sat there at my desk, the office buzzing around me, with that sinking feeling you get when your stomach drops before your brain catches up. We'd been together almost 2 years. I'd met her family, spent holidays with them, helped her move apartments. I couldn't figure out what I'd done to make her think this was okay. That night, I tried to keep it calm. I showed her the screenshot and asked why she'd say those things. She barely glanced at my phone before rolling her eyes. "You're overreacting," she said. "It's just girl talk." Like it was nothing. Like I should be fine with the people I see at her birthday dinners knowing what I look like when I'm sick or how much I make. I went home alone that night, and by the next morning, I'd made my decision. Breaking up with her was strangely quick. No yelling, no tears, just a tired conversation at her apartment the next evening. I told her I couldn't be with someone who treated my trust like gossip fodder. She shrugged, said something about me being too sensitive, and went back to scrolling on her phone. That was it. Walking out of her place, I felt lighter and heavier at the same time. I didn't miss her yet, but I hated the idea of people still talking about me in that group chat. They'd have their own version of the breakup by dinner, and I'd be painted as the bad guy. A couple of days later, I ran into her friend Haley at the grocery store. She's the one who sent me the screenshot by mistake. She gave me this awkward half smile, like she'd spotted a teacher outside of school. After a pause, she said, "I didn't know she'd go that far. I thought you should see it." I didn't press her for details, but the way she said it made me think there was more I hadn't read. That night, curiosity got the better of me. I scrolled through old messages, looking for anything that might give me a clue. Sure enough, buried in my camera roll were a few screenshots I'd taken months ago, little red flags I'd ignored at the time. Things she'd said that didn't sit right, jokes at my expense she'd posted online and later deleted. The more I pieced together, the more I realized this wasn't some one-time lapse. It was a pattern. And if it was a pattern, chances were I wasn't the only one she'd done it to. I didn't have to dig far to confirm it. A week after the breakup, my buddy Chris, who'd never been a big fan of hers, asked if I'd finally caught on. I told him about the messages, and he laughed, but not in a mean way. "Man, she did the same thing to her last boyfriend. My cousin knows him. It was a mess. That got under my skin. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was a habit she had, this need to perform other people's personal lives for an audience. I tried to put it out of my mind, but the thought stuck, she'd keep doing it, and no one would ever call her on it. Then Haley texted me out of the blue. 'You might want to see this,' she wrote, followed by a screenshot. It was the same group chat, except now I was officially the crazy ex in their conversations. They were picking apart our breakup, twisting details I knew weren't true. Haley didn't add commentary, just sent the image and left it at that. That night, I sat at my kitchen table staring at the screenshot. Part of me wanted to just block them all and be done with it. But another part, probably the same stubborn streak that made me save those old red flag messages, wanted to push back, not to start a fight, but to set the record straight somewhere they couldn't spin it. I didn't know exactly how I'd do it yet, but I did know I wasn't going to let her keep shaping the story without me saying a word. Before I could figure out my next move, something unexpected happened. One afternoon, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. The guy on the line said his name was Mark, and that he was dating my ex. At first, I thought he was calling to talk trash or stir things up. But then he told me he'd seen her group chat on her laptop. Same circle of friends, same tone, except this time, he was the one being dissected. She'd shared private details about his job, arguments he'd had with his family, even stuff about his finances. "I know we've never met," he said, "but I figured you'd understand. I don't think this is normal, and I'm not sure how to handle it." It was strange. I didn't feel angry about the timing of their relationship or even the overlap with mine. I just felt relieved that someone else could confirm what I'd been dealing with. We talked for a while, swapping short versions of our experiences, and he suggested we meet in person. We agreed on a coffee shop downtown the next day. I wasn't sure exactly what would come from it, but it felt like the first time I had a real chance to address the whole thing without her controlling the story. When I got to the coffee shop, Mark was already there, sitting at a corner table with a plain black coffee. He looked a little tense, like he'd been rehearsing what to say. We shook hands, and after a few awkward pleasantries, he opened his laptop. He had receipts, screenshots from the group chat, saved photos of her posts, even a couple of voice memos she'd sent her friends. The content was almost identical to what I'd seen before. Private details turned into entertainment, exaggerated for laughs. Only this time, I wasn't the subject. One thread in particular caught my eye. She'd been telling her friends that Mark was thinking about quitting his job because he couldn't handle the stress, when in reality, he'd just taken a week off after a family emergency. It was the same thing she'd done to me, taking something personal and twisting it until it sounded pathetic. Mark leaned back and said, "She makes everyone the punchline. I think she gets off on it." He wasn't looking for sympathy. He wanted a way to stop it from happening again, to him, to whoever came next. We kicked around a few ideas, none of them vindictive, but all centered on the same thought: she'd keep doing it until it cost her something. We didn't know what that something was yet, but we figured between the two of us, we could find it. By the time we left, we agreed to stay in touch and pool anything new we found. It wasn't revenge. It was more like damage control, for ourselves and for whoever might end up in that group chat next. Over the next couple of weeks, Mark and I stayed in touch. Every few days, he'd send me a new screenshot or tell me about another conversation he'd overheard. It was almost routine at this point, me shaking my head at how fast she could turn someone's personal life into content for her little audience. Then Haley reached out again. This time, she asked to meet in person. I wasn't sure if she was just feeling guilty or if she had something important, but we met at a park near my place. She didn't waste time. "She's been doing this at work too," Haley said. "Not just about you guys. About her coworkers, her boss, anyone. She told me about an incident where my ex had repeated something personal a coworker shared in confidence, and it got back to the wrong person. Apparently, HR had been involved, and she'd been given a warning. That was the missing piece. If she was reckless enough to let this habit bleed into her job, it wasn't just a personal problem. It could actually threaten her career. And that made me think maybe she wasn't untouchable after all. When I told Mark, he didn't even hesitate. If she's already on HR's radar, it's only a matter of time. We just have to be smart about it." It wasn't about getting her fired. But if her behavior finally had consequences, maybe she'd think twice before turning the next person into her punchline. I expected the next development to come from Mark or Haley. Instead, it came from her. Out of nowhere, she texted me, "Can we talk?" I almost ignored it, but curiosity got the better of me. We met at a quiet diner the next evening. She looked tired, not the kind of tired from a bad night's sleep, but worn down. Before I could even order a coffee, she said, "I need a favor. That was the last thing I thought she'd say. She explained that someone had been screenshotting her messages and sending them to people in her office. Not just the gossip about coworkers, private stuff about her family, things she swore she'd never shared outside her closest circle. HR had called her in again, and this time, she was told one more incident could cost her job. She said, "I think it's someone in that group chat. I know you don't owe me anything, but if you hear anything from Haley," she trailed off, like she couldn't quite bring herself to finish. I sat there, trying not to show my surprise. For the first time, she wasn't holding the power in the conversation. She looked like someone who finally understood how it felt to have your personal life passed around for entertainment. I told her I'd think about it, which was true. But walking out of the diner, I couldn't shake the feeling that the person leaking her messages wasn't just a random friend turning on her. I had a strong suspicion exactly who it was. I didn't confront him right away, but I was almost certain it was Mark. The timing lined up too perfectly. He'd been getting fresh screenshots for weeks, and he never said exactly how. He'd just say, "A friend passed it along," or, "It made its way to me." When I finally asked, he didn't deny it. "Look," he said, "I didn't make anything up. I just let the truth get to the people who deserve to hear it. She's been doing this for years. She's not going to stop unless someone draws a line." I told him about her asking me for help, and he almost laughed. "She's desperate now." "That's good. Maybe she'll think twice before she opens her mouth next time." The thing was, I wasn't sure I wanted to keep playing along. Yes, she'd crossed the line with me, with him, with plenty of others. But now it felt like I was helping engineer her downfall, not just defending myself. And that sat differently. Haley complicated things even more when I mentioned it to her. She admitted she'd been feeding Mark some of the information. "I'm not doing it to ruin her," she said. "I'm doing it because she won't stop hurting people. You know what she's like." For the first time, I realized I was in the middle of something bigger than just me versus her. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to keep being part of it, or if it was too late to walk away. I tried taking a step back. No more digging, no more forwarding screenshots, no more late-night calls with Mark. I figured if I pulled out quietly, things would settle on their own. But a week later, I got a call from Haley. "She thinks it's you," she said, straight to the point. "She's convinced you're the one leaking everything to her office." That threw me. I hadn't said a single thing to her workplace, but I knew how this looked. I was her ex, and I'd already seen enough of her messages to have the means. Now, apparently she'd told people I was out to ruin her career. The next day, I got a text from my ex's number. Just one line: "If I lose my job, I'll make sure you regret it." I sent it to Mark and Haley, not because I needed backup, but because I didn't want to be the only one who knew she'd said it. Mark didn't seem rattled. "She's lashing out," he said. "If she thinks you're the leak, maybe we should just let her keep thinking that." That idea didn't sit right. But before I could respond, Haley chimed in with something that stopped me cold. "She's meeting with HR tomorrow. If you really want this to end, that's your window." I didn't know what she meant exactly, but I had a feeling I was about to find out. The window Haley was talking about turned out to be simple. HR wanted proof. If they had concrete evidence that the leaks were coming from inside her friend group, they'd deal with it internally, and I'd be out of the picture. That morning, Haley sent me a forwarded message from the group chat, timestamped just a few hours before. My ex had shared something about a co-worker's divorce, complete with names. It was the kind of thing that could only have come from a private conversation at work. I didn't forward it to HR myself. Haley did. She knew one of the managers, and made sure it landed in the right inbox before the meeting. I stayed out of it entirely. No emails, no phone calls, no fingerprints. Later that week, I heard through the grapevine that she'd been put on unpaid leave. No one said exactly for how long, but it was enough to quiet her down, at least publicly. The group chat went dormant. My phone stopped lighting up with screenshots. I didn't feel triumphant. If anything, it was anticlimactic. The whole thing just fizzled out. Mark and I kept in touch for a while, then less and less. Haley moved away a few months later. Sometimes I wondered if she ever figured out it wasn't me who tipped off her office. Maybe she still thinks I did it. But at that point, I didn't care. The story wasn't mine anymore, and for the first time in months, my name wasn't in anyone else's punchline.